Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 208 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is David Howe.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
And oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest on today's episode. We got the wonderful Allison Ebling here once again, returning to the show. How are you, Allison?
I am fantastic. A little tired, but fantastic.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. We have you here, Allie, because we're talking all about Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Holy fuck, it's finally out. It still doesn't even feel real to say that, I think. The game, spoiler alert, it's fucking incredible. We're going to be talking about our hands-on impressions. We've been playing the game all weekend. Thoughts on the early game. I doubt any of us are too terribly far in the game at this point. But man, it's super fun. I've been playing nonstop. I can't wait to get into that for our main topic. And then other than that, we also have tons of news and rumors we're going to be talking about this week. Nintendo recently had a financial briefing, so we're going to be diving into some numbers and sales and stuff like that. We have some more information about Nintendo Live, which is happening in Washington State. And we have some more stuff on the Microsoft merger as well. That thing will not stay out of the news cycle. We got to talk about it. We're going to get into all that and more. Before we get into that, how are you guys doing today? We having a good weekend or
busy? Mine's been busy. I was out of town and there was a wedding this weekend. And then there was Tears of the Kingdom. So I've had very little time to sleep. Other things were more important than sleep.
Yeah, Allison, you're a trooper. You, I think, got off a plane like maybe 2 hours ago, something like that. And,
about that.
Yeah.
Right into New York rush hour. So that was
wow.
that was insult to injury.
Yeah, very, very appreciative of you being here for this episode. I've been excited to talk about this with you, and hopefully you got a lot of Tears of the Kingdom time in on the plane.
For
which
sure.
Is, great. What about you, Patrick? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't have a ton to report. Had a good birthday. Thanks to
that's right.
A lot of Switch heads said happy birthday to me, which I didn't think mattered, but it does. It was nice. Like I don't know. Like I don't know how to explain that. I guess it. You get used to people saying happy birthday to you, but then you get older. A lot of my friends have drifted away, and I haven't had I feel like this is the first birthday in a while where a bunch of people said happy birthday, and I was like, oh, this. I feel like part of something here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody.
I feel like we're kind of obviously this isn't true for everybody, but I feel like we're kind of in a post-Facebook world right now.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
And Facebook was always just like, it's your friend's birthday today. If I can press this button.
And then you get 100 to the point where you're like, it's too much. Yeah.
Exactly. Now every time you get it, you're like, oh, you actually care about me. Oh, Lord. I've had a pretty intense week for anybody who listened to the last episode of the podcast. Thank you everybody, first of all, for all the really kind words after our last episode. I tried to take it easy as much as possible this weekend. I could maybe give a little update. I don't want to take too much time off of this episode.
No, please. I would like to.
Yeah, sure. I went to, if you listen to the last episode, know I'm dealing with some skin issues. I have a melanoma on my head, which is annoying. That is a thing. I met with an oncologist today. My dad actually came into town, and that was good to just kind of have a bit of a roadmap going forward on what this is going to look like, having a little bit more clarity on what treatment is going to be. Hopefully within this week, I'll have both MRI and PET scans, at least scheduled for next week. And then we're already talking about what surgical procedures will be done. And hopefully, if nothing comes up on those scans, it'll just be chopping this shit off and burning it in the furnace and getting it out of my life forever. So that's the plan for right now, but I'll definitely keep you guys updated if anything changes. And I really do appreciate all the well wishes and everybody being so kind. I imagine it's similar to what you were feeling, Patrick, with the birthday wishes. It's nice to just know that people are thinking about you, right? So
yeah,
that's what's been going on with me.
All right. So we got a couple episodes to give some shout outs on. I'm going to just be rattling off some names here because we did an episode on Final Fantasy. I will maybe mention some of these comments because we got some first time commenters over on our YouTube He has Hive Mind said, please go back and play Final Fantasy 14 because the story's gotten so good. And it's a giant love letter to the franchise. YLIA, I don't know how you pronounce that, made a big deal about Dan's couch. And made some borderline inappropriate comments, but comment comedically. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's what do you call that? That's interactions, baby. That's clicks. We'll take it, dude. Yeah,
they like Dan's couch. And then Motionless said Final Fantasy for the 9 for the Switch is definitely not the best way to play that one, and that it maybe is the worst port of that remaster. So be warned, I suppose.
Yeah, not really wrong. That said, if you only have a Switch, it's totally fine. And it's, for my money, portability goes a really long way, right? So having it portably is totally worth it in my mind.
And here's where I'm going to just rattle off names because we did a special episode that David alluded to where we just kind of talked about life. So many people commented. Over on the YouTube, Rebleep, Krakow, Dylan H., Eric Shaw, and then over on the Discord, this is a long list, but I thank you to all these people. Swamp Cat, Cena, New Metal Zaddy, A Musel 2, AV, The Huge, Hans, Steve Irwin, Karosetta, Ty Tybos, Ivy, Amir, Lee, DCD, KSB, OKC, I don't know Jack either, Cool Uncle Vince, Donnie Tello. That feels good to have. Thank you all.
Yeah, it was really like cathartic, I think, to do that episode. I remember like we recorded it and I was like, okay, that felt pretty good. And then like in between editing it and recording it, I like started to second guess myself on whether or not we even released that episode.
Well, yeah, because
yeah.
I thought there was a good chance we might just be like, nah, that's too personal or too weird or whatever. Yeah. But people reacted well, so
yeah, I'm really glad we did, and you guys giving us some love on that really helped solidify that decision. So thank you guys very much.
Yeah, so thank you. If there's anything we talk about today, I assume most of you out there are playing Tears of the Kingdom. So if there's anything we miss, if you have any comments, definitely share them with us. We'll try to shout you out next time. And we do appreciate it if you also could leave a review of the podcast on Apple or share it with a friend, and definitely hop over to the YouTube because we got video stuff going on. And if nothing else, hit like on this video and then subscribe. That would also be appreciated.
Yeah, we're nearing a sub milestone, so I'd love to see that happen before next episode.
And then we'll talk about the news and rumors in video games for the week. First up, Nintendo released its current quarterly financial numbers update, investor meeting, whatever you want to call it, the Q&A, all that stuff come out. The big one is hardware numbers. We are now at over 125 million Switches sold. It still is behind the PlayStation 2, right? That's in the DS. So it's depending on whether you want to call it a handheld or a console, you can say it's the second best selling or the third, if you want to be honest, right? But because it's kind of both. But what do you think? The DS is 154 point something, and I actually don't have the number in front of me. Isn't the PlayStation around that too, 150 something?
Yeah, it's just above that, I think. So it's, there's definitely a bit of a slump right now in Switch sales, which makes sense.
Though maybe not right now, right? Because this doesn't account for something that is potentially really big.
I don't think that this accounts for the Zelda Special Edition.
No.
Right?
I'm nearly certain that it doesn't, just because of timing.
Right, exactly. And then obviously just, all the depressed Australian dads who are buying a Switch to play Tears of the Kingdom for the first time. Did you guys not see that commercial?
I did, yeah. I actually even overheard people talking about it at my school, kid's school, while picking him up. I heard some guys talking about it.
Yeah.
Did you see that Switch ad?
Yeah. It's like, how did they know I'm in a loveless marriage? Really interesting ad, but I think a lot of people kind of relate to it.
Yeah, no, people are talking about it. It's
yeah. But anyway, but yeah, either way, I mean, I definitely don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to hit those numbers. I think it is a bit of an uphill battle at this point. PS5 is doing crazy numbers, and a lot of people are picking up PS5s. We're finally at that point in the Switch's life where it's no longer the top selling console every single month. You know what I mean? But That said, we'll see what happens. I think Furukawa in the kind of Q&A here, I know you're getting into some of it, but reiterated how there will not be a new Switch this year despite the waning sales. So they're definitely trying to push to that number at this point.
Yeah, there was somebody that asked the question about like, you announced the Switch at this time frame, so does that mean that since you haven't, it's at least this time frame? And they're like, no, we don't. We do what we want.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, either way, interesting numbers to see. Continues to be a huge behemoth. And even if it doesn't beat the fucking PS2, man, I mean, it's still sold like hotcakes. They can't complain.
We got updated software numbers, which, the top 10, there's other software numbers that we could pour over from the details, which I'll be honest, this time I didn't spend a lot of time looking at. So I'm just looking at the top 10. And I think the things that interest me are where Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have ended up so far. And that's I think it is 7th place at just over 22 million. So it's still below Sword and Shield, but I would wonder if they will surpass it. I don't know. I kind of thought they would, but they haven't yet, so we'll see. Mm-hmm. I guess that depends on how well the Switch continues to sell, partly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'm looking at this. I'm kind of curious how many sales Tears of the Kingdom has managed to get out already. Like, I know we'll be talking about it in a little bit, but there was definitely a time I was playing where I was thinking to myself, I bet like at least 3 million people are playing this game simultaneously right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
So as they do a Q&A with investors at these things too. And there were lots of questions about the Mario movie and making more movies and that money and where that money's going and stuff like that. And there were some, I believe personally, sort of like before the English translation came out, some people that ran with some information where they mentioned Nintendo Pictures a couple of times, kind of in passing. People that thought that meant the next movie would definitely be part of that, but they just kind of pointed to Nintendo Pictures when they were asked about it and saying they're going to be doing stuff internally and externally. I don't know that there's any clear roadmap, though some people were kind of pushing that narrative.
Yeah. I find that interesting because, I mean, they bought this company and turned it into it, and then the Nintendo Pictures branding was not on the Super Mario Brothers movie. Maybe that was because it had already been in development by the time that sale went through, and so it was just Nintendo produced movie. But I think a lot of people also are confusing some of that, like by some of that reporting to be like, they're not going with Illumination, right? They're doing it in-house. I don't think that even if the next movies are Nintendo Pictures, which I really do think they will be, that could just be the producing arm of that, right? I think I don't think that Nintendo wants to sever their ties with Illumination, at least for Mario and its subsequent sequels, which I'm sure there will be many. But I would not be surprised if even the next Illumination Mario movie has a Nintendo Pictures placard at the beginning. Because, it's going to be, I think that they probably moved some of their own marketing teams over to the Nintendo Pictures department and will be continuing to have that act as a part of their producing arm. Because they do a lot of, they publish a lot of games that aren't developed by themselves as well. So it would make sense to have the actual animation studios be somebody else and have them just, produce the film.
And then just before we move away from this financials thing, I guess we should say, when we're talking about the hardware sales, one of the things they did is they kind of have put a pretty low forecast. And I say low. It's still like 15 million units or whatever for the next fiscal year, which is still a lot if you think about it. But it's low for what the Switch has been doing. And that's been a big news article too, or a thing that's been going around, that they've put out such a low prediction for what they expect to sell. Mm-hmm. So I don't know we'll see what that means. Maybe it just means they don't have a lot of games lined up, or maybe they're just trying to be conservative because they're making so much money. They don't want people to be upset if they aim too high. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we did mention the Super Mario movie. We should mention the Mario movie is coming to streaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Peacock first?
I don't know that it's streaming
right
away.
It's coming to what do you call it, like pay-per-view or whatever?
Yeah, it's a video on demand, so it's coming out to digital platforms, and I believe actually by the time this episode comes out, it will be available to purchase digitally. That's platforms like iTunes, Google, Amazon, stuff like that, right? So I don't think the SOD is streaming on demand. VOD is you actually purchase or rent for each film. But I was just looking at the box office numbers. It's definitely slowed a little bit. It's finally kind of gotten there. I think, Guardians of the Galaxy came out. That was kind of the next big movie that was going to take a lot of a big chunk out of the box office numbers. So now is a good time for it to be coming out. And then, yeah, I'm sure it'll be moving on. I think it might be coming to Netflix too. It might be one of those that, I think even like Bob Iger at the latest Disney thing was like, we might start putting some of our stuff on other platforms, and so we can get some money from licensing and stuff like that. So everything's kind of shifting around to different platforms these days.
Yeah, I think you've told me this, but I've seen it online too. I don't think it's like they've ever officially said this, or a date at least, but it'll go to Peacock and then it'll go to Netflix.
Something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's certainly not going to be just like a traditional streaming release.
Cool. Well, we're going to move on to Nintendo Live, which was announced, as you may recall, a while back, a big event happening in Seattle in September. They gave us specific dates and some additional information. It's coming September 1st through 4th. So for people that were wondering if it would happen at the same time that PAX West happens, that is the case. It is happening simultaneously with PAX, sort of a separate event, but at the same time. And they also specifically say on the website, in the FAQ section, that no announcements are planned. It is an in-person celebration of Nintendo fun for all members of the family. So any Direct or Switch successor announcements are not going to happen there. I don't think they would say that. And backtrack on it. That would be bad.
So we're probably not going to see any games that we don't know about now then. You know what I mean? Unless we get a June
thing.
A June Direct or rather anything at least before the event, right? I think we'll be getting a Direct after Nintendo Live is what it seems like is going to happen.
Yeah, late September, maybe. Who knows? I feel like everything's kind of up in the air right now, a little bit. Like I could see them not giving us a Direct. I honestly could see there being one more Direct this year or none. You know what I mean? Like maybe two, but
don't put that out there, man. We got two more. We got two more Mario Kart DLC drops coming. That means two more Directs in my book.
Two more Directs. David says you heard it here.
I think so.
Oh boy. Well, I don't know. If there's anything else to talk about with Nintendo Live. They do have like a website now. You can go and look at information there, but. Yeah, we got the dates, September 1st through 4th. Many people know that Link's Awakening, the Nintendo game, was inspired by Twin Peaks due to, things that Nintendo has said, right? And people have said, but something that just kind of casually came out, right? is the other guy, not David Lynch, Mark Frost. I don't know a ton about him, right? David, he tweeted something about this, apparently.
Yeah, he just kind of randomly tweeted this and said, basically someone had tweeted some news story about how Link's Awakening was inspired by Twin Peaks, as you said, has been said by many of the developers. And then he quote tweeted it and said, "Anybody ever play this? I met with them about it and gave them some ideas. Never tried it myself." Funny thing to say about a game that came out in the early 90s.
Yeah. Anybody ever play this game?
Yeah, it's like, I think so, buddy. He's one of those film critics that was like, it's the Mario movie is like an unplugged Game Boy. He's kind of stuck in the past. But yeah, I had no idea that Mark Frost actually met with some people from Nintendo and like talked about some of the ways that they were inspired by Twin Peaks. Cause it's kind of got similar vibes, but it's not like its whole plot elements really that are taken from the game. So it's interesting. And I'd love to hear more about some of those meetings. I know like the replies to this tweet are just like all different games journalists being like, Mark, please DM me.
Yeah. Tell us about the meeting.
Yeah. So maybe, if all goes well, maybe we'll be hearing about more of the specifics here in the future. But
no, we won't, because he'll be like, did you play the game and was it any good? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, otherwise I won't talk about it.
yeah. But it's just fascinating stuff. And, I think Twin Peaks has really inspired a lot of games. And this reminds me of like when there's like a story about how Kanye met Miyamoto and tried to pitch him a game, and Miyamoto was like not interested at all. It was like a game where you play as this dead mom or something. Anyway, we don't have to. I think Kanye's shit on himself enough. But yeah, no, I found that to be a pretty fascinating story, and I'd love to hear more about those talks.
Moving on and away from Nintendo for just a tiny bit. First up, it's Silksong. We're gonna talk about Hollow Knight Silksong. There is news about it. I am sad/happy to report that we got some confirmation that Silksong is not coming in the first half of 2023. Matthew Griffin, who's like a marketer for the game that needs no marketing, he tweeted an update saying that they had planned to release the game in the first half of 2023, but development is still continuing. And they're excited by how it's shaping up. It's gotten quite big. So they want to take time to make it as good as they can get. And we can expect more details once we get closer to release, which is still a vague day. Just by way of like history here, Xbox put out a presentation last summer where they included Silksong in it for Game Pass and said that all the games you just saw are coming before June or by June of 2023. And so like everybody's like, oh, so Silksong's got to come out by June 2023, but nobody at Team Cherry ever said that. And so there was there's been much speculation as the clock has gotten tighter on this. And here we got
that thing that Microsoft says has zero meaning. Like like Starfield is delayed past that. Like all these other games they talked about have been delayed past that. So that was Microsoft definitely put their foot in their mouth on that one. Yeah.
But now we know it's not coming in the next 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah. So, oh well. Yeah. Kind of good with Tears of the Kingdom. I was actually getting a little worried if that was a true thing, that like it would come out and I would have the two games I'm most excited to play simultaneously out, which wouldn't be terrible, right? It would just.
I'm running into that problem next week with Firmament coming out.
Yeah.
It's coming out on Thursday. Yeah. But I don't care about this. I'm glad they're taking their time. I feel like this
game is going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, just look at Tears of the Kingdom. Like you can see how
the game. Yeah.
Yeah. You could see that so much time went into it, and so like with a bunch of time, it's like, fuck, man, let them cook. Like this, this is definitely going to be a huge game, and polish it up, man. It's been a lot of really disappointing PC releases and stuff and ports this year, and really bad performance on a lot of games. So I think making sure this thing is nice and polished is going to be of utmost importance.
Yeah. I mean, it was 2019. They showed it at the Treehouse where it looked like done. You know what I mean? Like as they were playing at least sections of it. And it's like, so this game, I think probably had some scope expanded, or just they're polishing the shit out of it, like you said. But
yeah.
I am sad to report that we're going to talk about Microsoft Activision Blizzard again. Just briefly though, we'll say the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition has been approved by the European Union regulation entity. So as you may recall, we talked about the UK denied it, but the European Commission has given it the green light, and what's bizarrely saying in part due to cloud gaming, which is what the UK cited as the reason they didn't want to do it. I guess the EU thinks that this is going to help cloud gaming, and the UK thinks it's going to hurt it. I don't know. So this probably gives Microsoft fuel to the fire to go appeal and point to this in both the US and in the UK, where they're having stumbling blocks.
Yeah, I think part of it being approved here was them saying you have to license certain Activision Blizzard games to competing cloud services, right? So and that's a global referendum.
Yeah,
even
so
though it's
Stadia.
done by the right. Oh, goodness gracious. But PSN probably, or PlayStation Now, or whatever the fucking PlayStation Plus is now with streaming, like that would be a part of it. I don't know if that means Amazon Luna or something like that, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, so if that is true and that is overall, then the whole UK's reason for doing it is now kind of moot. So I would expect probably within the next week, we'll hear some movement from that. This was probably a behind closed doors thing to deal with the CMA's restrictions. And I know there are appeals happening in the US still, but I don't know. Yeah, it keeps ping ponging back and forth on whether or not this is going to happen. But this is a big step in the right direction for them.
Yeah. I know they have like some internal deadlines too that are coming up to do this, or else they have to renegotiate their deal and all that stuff. So I'm sure they're going to try to push as hard as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else on this? Does anybody want to talk about Microsoft?
No, please.
Okay. Okay. Well, obviously our main topic this week is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but oh boy, there's been a bunch of news items related to it that, in part because we took a week off from talking about the news, we should mention some of those. We can breeze through this and then talk about it, but if there's anything y'all specifically want to, please interrupt. I'm just going to kind of bang it out. The game leaked early. I don't know. I think we maybe talked about that a couple of weeks ago, but it also kind of happened around the time of our Final Fantasy episode. So like the whole game, people have been emulating the whole, right? Like being able to play it on PC for
they're playing at 4K, 60.
Yeah, and they'll let you know that they're playing it at 4K 60. Oh god!
And then Nintendo will silence them.
I hear a lot of if you play it, it's better at 4K. Anyway, there was a funny moment where Reggie Fils-Aimé called somebody out on Twitter who had posted themselves playing it early, or I think it was kind of like this on the Switch though, so I don't know what that was about, but they were named and shamed. And then, man, this game is doing incredible with reviewers, right? Like, it apparently has like the highest rating on Metacritic in the last 5 years, and the highest rating of anything ever of any game ever on OpenCritic, which is the other sort of aggregate website. And it's like, maybe I can't remember now. It was like the top 4th or 5th game ever on Metacritic, just below Soul Calibur, or something like that. But anyway, man, just the reviews have been amazing, right?
Yeah, many 10 out of 10s, many claims of masterpiece. Hard to disagree. They made a game which many considered to be already a masterpiece and made it way better. And way bigger and more robust in almost every conceivable way. So yeah, not super surprising, but it's nice to be living in this moment right now with this game coming out.
Couple other quick things to say, if you want to, this might be of interest to people listening. Polygon did an interview with several of the key developers, like Aonuma and the director of the game. There was also an Ask the Developers segment on the Nintendo website. So you can definitely go read through all those. It's pretty interesting stuff, honestly. They're not able to answer the fun questions Polygon asks them, of course. But the one question I had and have mentioned on this podcast at least once or twice is like, what sparked this DLC? You know what I mean? Because now, was it the sky? Was it this? Was it that? It's pretty clear now that it was the combining, the ultra hand ability. I think that's pretty obvious after playing the game too. It's obvious like after playing it as well. Yeah, it's like it was a new ability, and then it was like, oh fuck, we could do so much with this. We can't just add this onto an existing game. Yeah, what's funny is they even apparently were trying it during Breath of the Wild. Like, I mean, not surprising because they talked about this being DLC, but they had were messing around with it, and then now here we are, we're doing it. What else in the news? It's just selling well. Right, like from the places we get that info so far, which is the UK and also in France, it's doing really well. So yeah, sold 500,000 copies in France opening weekend, and it's the second biggest Nintendo launch ever in UK history, behind only Wii Fit for the Wii, which is
obviously that's going to be massive. That was at the peak of the Wii, right? Geriatrics having this console in their home and using it to maintain a sense of balance. Also doubled the sales of Hogwarts Legacy in the UK. And Hogwarts Legacy has been far and away the best-selling game so far this year. So with it doubling the sales in the UK, I think that's going to be pretty reflected in a lot of other regions as well. So you could expect, I would not be surprised if this thing has sold like 12, 15 million copies already, just in its like first week. I'm not going to make a bet there. My betting days are behind me on this podcast. But
you don't want to consume any more consoles.
Yeah, I don't want to eat my digital copy of Tears of the Kingdom, but yeah, no, it's pretty wild out there. Really, really happy to see it doing so well.
Awesome. I think that's it. We'll call it there on the news. We're going to talk about this game in detail. So we're going to take a short break. And then when we come back, we're going to really dig into The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. So this week we are talking about The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. It's finally out. This is our early impressions of it because it came out on Friday at midnight. If you were going physical, some stores were open, but so we've only had a few days with it, but I have packed in. It's weird because I've packed in probably a good 10 plus hours, but it still feels like I haven't played enough. To be,
I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's so much to do.
I think I could play this job as a full-time job, or play this game as a full-time job for the next week.
Freudian slip there, Patrick.
This game is my job. I think it feels like I could play it like 5+ hours a day and still like have plenty to do right now, at least. So obviously, I think we've kind of hinted at this, but let's just open up with some initial impressions of like how are we feeling about this? It's great start, in my opinion. Like so much fun. The beginning of this game. I have a lot of thoughts about sort of the opening, but in general, I'm having a blast. I don't know if there's any other way to put it.
It's been really crazy because one of the first things that I did once you got out of kind of the Great Plateau area, was go visit all the places that I remembered liking, or as many as that I could get to by memory, like with the roads and stuff. Some of them were more difficult than others to get to, or like you get to a place and you're like, hey, there was a bridge here and it's no longer a bridge. So it's been really fun figuring out, even though the topography is the same, there's so much work that they've done to change up how things are presented to you.
And real quick, Allison, one of the things I'm so glad that you're here for is, didn't you just replay Breath of the Wild?
I did. I finished an old playthrough. I got the idea like a month ago when I started getting like really antsy for Tears of the Kingdom, and I was like, you know what? I gotta scratch the itch a little bit. So when I opened up the save file, I had gotten pretty far, and I was like, you know what? I have nothing but time. How about I just start doing some Koroks and just do like a few a day and see how close we get? And then it became like 2 weeks till release, and I was like, okay, well now I have to do it.
Yeah, now it's like an obsession.
Yeah. It was like unhealthy. Sitting on the couch late at night hunting Koroks.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll just be really curious to ask. Then lean on you for the like differences and that sort of thing in this episode.
Yeah.
But David, you share with us how you're.
Oh, sure. Well, I just, before I get into just overall thoughts, I'll say I think it's great that you did that, Allison. I have always kind of had a problem replaying Breath of the Wild just because it's like, it's such a big game, and so much of my enjoyment of it was tied into the exploration and the discovery of the game, right? So going back to play it, a lot of that impetus was kind of taken away from me, I think. Even in Master Mode and some of the DLC stuff, it just kind of felt like it was almost too big of a hurdle for me to go back and replay that game. But I'm kind of glad I didn't, right? Because now I'm in this position with Tears of the Kingdom. And obviously, and heads up to anyone listening who hasn't played the game yet, we are going to get into some light early game spoilers and some things that are fun you kind of have to reveal about the game in order to properly talk about it. But like, so that's your warning.
Yeah.
But it's like, like just on the surface level, like, I'm glad that I didn't replay Breath of the Wild because I've like finally kind of forgotten where a lot of the stuff is. You know what I mean? It's like forgotten isn't the right word. Like I rediscover it and then I have this like almost like nostalgia rather than like, oh, I'm just going back to this place again. Right. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and they have, not to say they haven't like remixed the surface in this game. Like, you know, there's a lot that's changed. Just the stuff that's fallen from the sky, dotting the landscape makes it different. But then there's tons of stuff as well, like weather phenomenon, whatever. Right. But yeah. And then obviously that's not even touching the fact that we've got not a million, but a ton of sky islands, and then a whole goddamn underground as well that is the size of Hyrule, basically a second map that exists under Hyrule. You know, they really, really outdid themselves on this one. Just as far as my overall opinions on this game, I mean, masterpiece already. I mean, I'm like 10, 15 hours in myself, but it's like, shit, I cannot see a world in which, to me, this isn't one of the greatest games like I've ever played. You know, I'm like really consistently blown away. I'm consistently like gobsmacked by just the sheer amount of ways I can do any particular thing that I want to do. It's like, this is the most freedom I've ever felt I've ever had in a game. It feels like there's ways that they want me to do things, but they in no way are even trying to get me to do it that way. They're just like, here you go, man. Here are the tools. Have fun. Like, and, you know, on top of that, obviously we've got a way better story. We've got, you know, more fleshed out characters, more fleshed out world. So many of my complaints about the first game have been addressed. Yeah, I can't wait to dive into a lot of the specifics with you guys. It's just a very easy contender for game of the year for me, definitely.
Well, if you'll bear with me, then what I think would be fun to do is to just kind of talk about the opening and walk through it together, the three of us. Sure. And then once we get past that, we can open up and see where the conversation goes. But like, I want to talk about the opening of the game. And like David said, we're spoiling the opening segments. Like, we've all played at least 10-ish hours, it sounds like, maybe more. So
probably a little bit more, but yeah.
But the game opens up with the going down into the cave stuff we've seen since the very first trailers, right? Though notably there was no pack beast, which I kind of remember from some of the early trailers. I don't know if that was some cut or something we'll see later. Who knows? But
that was the one thing that if it had been in the game, it would have been sub 30 frames per second. So they were like, we can't do it. Yeah.
But and then, you know, it's kind of switched between cutscene and playable segments. I just got heavy Skyrim vibes going down into that cave. Just something about the visceral feel of it, and because, you know, in Breath of the Wild there weren't caves, right? So like nothing felt quite like that, and it just felt like Skyrim to me, with a character walking next to you and stuff.
Yeah, it felt like the first time in a Zelda title where you opened with a cutscene and then you weren't just immediately set loose with gameplay. It was very kind of guided gameplay, like, oh, you're here. There's this little bit of cutscene. Now you can play a little bit. Now there's another cutscene and play a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is a weird and different pacing for them to start with. It really put a whole different feel, like very, very different to how Breath of the Wild started, which was, you're awake, go play.
Yeah.
You know?
Which makes sense. I mean, it makes sense considering the majority of people playing this probably also played Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
It's like, cool. It was like a great story. And it's also a good indication that story is going to be taking way more of a forefront in this game, I think. Having such a long opening section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was also just a super fun way to justify Link getting weakened with the attack and with the literal hearts getting destroyed. Mm-hmm. I just loved that moment.
Yeah, that was a really good indicator, because we started and I was like, whoa, full heart and stamina bar. What is this? And then I was like, do we get back to that? That was like where my initial thought went. I was like, okay, because even with the DLC on the last game, you couldn't fill both, I don't think.
Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom is a Metroidvania confirmed.
So I just really enjoyed that. And then, you know, we go through that segment with the mummy and all that, and we lose Zelda. We don't have to go over every story beat here, but
I will say my favorite little detail at the very beginning was how cute it was whenever Link held Zelda's torch for her, whenever she like gives a little giggle, and I was like, oh man, like they've got great characterization already, and it's just like this really sweet relationship that they have.
Yeah, Zelda is so great in the opening. it just like sucks that she disappears. You know what I mean? I'm like, I want more Zelda. One of these games.
I think we'll get more Zelda throughout the game. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to talk about whatever in that story beat in the cave part, but then eventually we wake up on the Great Sky Island, the first sort of Great Plateau, right? Like the same thing as the Great Plateau, the Great Sky Island, this sort of pretty large area. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you played Breath of the Wild more recently, but I don't know that you went up to the Great Plateau. I don't know if this feels bigger or smaller, but
I haven't been there yet. I've been mostly on the west side of the map for the vast majority of my gameplay, aside from my couple little forays into other places where I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here yet.
Yeah. I do think
which was also an interesting feeling, right? Because the first game basically tells you you could go there to the final boss if you want.
Right.
And this one, I don't know where the final boss is. Right. There's no indication really of what's going on. To me, I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm aimlessly wandering, but I'm not mad about it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Great Sky Island. How was y'all's playthrough of that area? Any thoughts?
It felt very similar to the beginning of Breath of the Wild, to the point where I was like, uh-oh. Like, I hope that the game opens up a little bit more, because I did just play this game, and I hope I didn't like burn myself out on the gameplay. Yeah. Because it really did. It felt very, very similar to that. Like, oh, here, the one thing that was different was the little bit of like rug pulling right at the end, where they're like, oh, you're not done yet, because you actually need something. You need something to progress, which was also an interesting way to introduce that topic to Breath of the Wild players. Like, hey, this is Zelda. There's going to be moments where you have to complete something else before you do this.
Right.
Yeah.
You talk about the big door.
The three hearts versus 4 hearts. Yeah, I definitely had that moment where I'm like, there's only 3 shrines. That's not right. There's 4.
Yeah, I walked up to the statue and I was like, I guess we don't get that here.
It was a funny like little subversion of your expectations, because I also was like, oh, okay, there'll be 4 shrines, and I'm like, but where the fuck is it? Same with like, for a long time I couldn't find a shirt. You know what I mean? And I was like, did I miss the shirt?
I was like running around, and then I was like, well, and I'd actually texted several people that are playing the game at the same time, and I was like, have you finished this island yet? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, did you find a shirt? I felt like Nintendo was pranking me. I was like jumping out the dramatic title sequence, and Link has no shirt. I was like, okay, I feel like I did something wrong.
Exactly.
There is a shirt on the Great Sky Island, but
oh shit, I'm gonna have to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it.
I admittedly have not done that much. I mean, just kind of going past the original Sky Island that you start on, I haven't gone back up to the sky as much as I thought I would be in this game so far. Granted, I'm still early, right? But there's just so much new shit to do everywhere that it's like I kind of forget sometimes that there are whole like islands in the sky with whole beats and have their own shrines on them as well. And so it's like, I think like that's just a testament to how much this game doesn't feel like DLC, where it's like, I thought that was going to be the big draw of this game. And to me, that just feels like icing or bonus content, really, to me, right? It's like, I feel like the lion's share of stuff I've been doing has been just discovering new stuff on the ground and in the depths. I mean, I've barely scratched the surface on that so far. But yeah, I'm really impressed with that for what I thought was going to be such a huge part of the game.
It felt like some clever marketing misdirection, right? Like every bit of marketing material that they showed was all about adventures in the sky, adventures in the sky. The key image was also him in the sky. And you're like, okay, great. It's about the sky. Great. They've added that. Awesome. And then you actually start playing the game and you're like, oh my God, they've done so much more than just that they just didn't talk about at all. Like they've shown in a couple of the later trailers, they showed a little bit of the depths. And the only reason I was like, that doesn't quite, where is he? Is he in like the spirit realm or something? Because of the particle effect that happens down there. But other than like, they showed it, but they didn't say anything about it. Never, not once. Right. And it's like, whoa.
Also, real quickly, David's comment and what you were just saying too, Allison, like, is also a testament to how you can play this game differently. I have been playing my own 10 to 15 hours, but I've also spent quite a bit of time sitting next to my son who's playing, and just like, thankfully I played first, so I kind of helped him through like I've made him play himself for the most part, but helped him, like guided him through the Great Sky Island. He's gotten off. He's gone back to the sky a ton. Like that's all he does. He likes to get up there and do stuff. And he's gone to the depths. I haven't gone to the depths. You know what I mean? Like I have just been shrine hunting, like on the surface, because that's pleasing to me right now. But it's just like you can play this game. I mean, that's true of Breath of the Wild, but it feels like there's 3 areas now where you could focus your attention in addition.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe we talk about shrines. Shrines are back, baby, in a big way.
Also, something that was unclear in the marketing, right?
Yep,
like, you know?
We didn't know what they looked like. We didn't know what they were going to be like. You know, I kind of miss the original Shrine song from the first Breath of the Wild. I think that's a little better than the Shrine music that's in this game. But that notwithstanding, I think these shrines are much better than the Breath of the Wild shrines. I think like they almost all have to do with Ultra Hand and the other abilities that you have, right? It really forces you to get really creative. And like these are where the you can really do anything you want really shines, I think, because in the shrines, like, you know, there are times where I'm like, I can't imagine anyone else in the world beat this shrine the way that I did. You know what I mean? Like, I know this was totally wrong. I basically did it backwards. You know what I mean? But it's like, somehow I got to the end and it's like, all right, man, I'll fucking take it, you know? And that's been a really fulfilling experience so far.
Are the shrines shorter? I don't know if it feels that way to y'all. I've only done maybe 10 or so, and I haven't played Breath of the Wild in several years, so I don't. But it just feels like they're a little punchier, and it feels better. Like in that regard,
it does like some of the shrines of Breath of the Wild would have 2 or 3 rooms or even more to go through, but they feel shorter, and I feel like there aren't as many given rewards in them either, aside from the blessings. Maybe I'm just missing chests, but I've been like trying to look around. But a lot of the shrines of Breath of the Wild, right, you get to the end and there's a chest there of some sort, and I think that had to do with weapon durability, right? And in this game, the whole thing is build new things, create new things. We're not just going to hand you weapons at the end of shrines. So most of the stuff that I've gotten out of shrines has been materials, and sometimes bows, but not a lot of weapons.
I will say, man, I appreciate so much more that they just hand you arrows constantly in this fucking game.
My God.
Because I'm using arrows like, I feel like 5 times as much as I used arrows in Breath of the Wild, right? Just the ability, and maybe we can talk about the fusion mechanic here a little bit, but it's like the being able to just craft your own arrows like within a second of pulling out your bow is like amazing, right? And
not having to buy fire arrows or bomb arrows.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, I wish there were more bomb flowers. I'll tell you that right now. I'm constantly like wishing I had more bombs, but it's like, you know, that whole mechanic, especially with the arrows, is making it, I'm like doing way more like midair slowdown attacks. You know what I mean? I'm doing a lot of stuff like that I wasn't doing in the original Breath of the Wild. And then as far as the weapon durability stuff, I mean, that was a huge complaint with the first game. I think that was the majority of people's like sticking point with it. You know, it was kind of, you either love it or you hate it, right? And I think they struck a pretty good middle ground on this, where it's like, you know, all the, you know, the story reason is like all the weapons got degraded by the whatever, the ooze, what do they call it, the gloom. Right? Like kind of ruined all the weapons, but then it's fine. I mean, you just attach a rock to that fucking thing and it's, you know, back to whatever, right? And the idea too that like a weapon that's about to be destroyed, you can then attach something to and it gets its durability back. It really you know, it helps you be able to hold stuff longer, and it makes them all feel a little less precious when you know, lose a weapon. It's like, oh, cool, I'll just craft something just as good, you know? Yeah. So I really enjoy that.
Because I've been using bow and arrow so much more, I'm a lot more stingy about the bows too. Like, I found a couple really good ones just by like wandering around in places again that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be here yet, but I'm just here. But I'm really hesitant to use them because I don't know if I can get another one. But yeah,
I'm jumping around here a little bit, but just going back to the Great Sky Island, like, I wandered off? I had 2 great experiences because I played it my way, which was just completely ignoring the way I probably should have gone. And then when I played it with my son, I was like, you should go in a counterclockwise path around this because it's very guided then. And that is not what I did. And I died a million times falling off of things and running into gigantic enemies that I don't think you can play until you travel back up to this thing. And I think that's great. It feels really rich. And I think even being dropped sort of in Central Hyrule, which is sort of the starting area, right? There's some tough enemies. Like, and I mean, Breath of the Wild was the same way where it was pretty hard at first. Do y'all feel like this
had
will
like
be
an
the
inverse
same way?
difficulty spike?
I think this game probably will too, but I'm not sure. What do y'all think about that? Does it seem like it?
I was surprised, and maybe it was just because I was so familiar with the gameplay mechanics of Breath of the Wild, but even going back and like starting a new file, I didn't have trouble with big enemies. Like the first one that you're kind of guided towards in Breath of the Wild is the Lionel in Zora's Domain.
Yep.
And going back and playing that when kind of the battle mechanics is great. Well, not great, but it's not as difficult as like the first time you go and fight it. And I'm having that kind of like, oh my God, it's the first time against these major enemies vibes again. But even against easy enemies, because their attack patterns are different.
And that might be part of it. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like one of them headbutted me. I was like, what? They can do that now?
Yeah.
And they have random weapons sometimes. They have
and that have unexpected effects.
Yeah.
That like all of a sudden I'll be on the ground. I'm like, what? And I was like, they have a spear. What is that? And then when I defeat it and pick it up, it's like a feathered spear that has a wind effect on it. And I was
like,
what?
Yeah. The black and gray bokoblins will have those a lot of times, or like the kind of like leader of the group of enemies that you're attacking will have like the more enhanced weapons, which are nice to just pick up. You don't have to fuse those yourself. That's really cool. Just enemy variety in general in this game is like tenfold what was in Breath of the Wild. Like, I think the first time I saw one of those horriblins. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The guys that cling to the walls of caves. I was like, what the fuck is that? It like really scared me. And like the little like the like red hand,
the gloom hand things.
I still don't really know how to defeat those guys. I just run away whenever I see them.
I have a really great screenshot because one of the first nights that I was in Central Hyrule, those things came out and chased me, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and I just dove in the water. I'm like, I hope they can't come in water, and they were like up on a cliff, and I took this shot of me in the water, and then like up on the cliff looking down at me, like, I'm just gonna swim for a while, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just really impressed with that, right? I mean,
and not just enemies too, right? Like just like creatures. There's more lizards. There's more stuff in the caves, and just I don't know. It feels very
50
alive.
different fucking kinds of fish. Yeah. It's really crazy. I mean that's the kind of stuff where you're like, okay, this is a new game. This is not DLC. Like it's like the more I play this game, I'm like, man, they went all out for the sequel, and I was worried, man. I was worried that playing the same Hyrule would feel stale, and it really doesn't. And it's all that little minutia, right? It's like the number of enemies they add, the number of weapons they add, all this new stuff like makes it feel fresh. Like, and that's not even counting all the new areas you can go to. It's like if it had just been that, I think it would have been a sequel, and not just a $70 DLC, right? Like this game just had so much love and care put into it so far. I can't wait to keep playing.
To that point, also, Hyrule itself feels different. Like I haven't really ventured past Central Hyrule much, but like there's tents and camps everywhere, and it feels more lived in. And it's these sort of makeshift cities around the gloom and the lookout. I forget what it's called. Lookout.
Landing.
Yeah, Lookout Landing. Yeah.
Like it just feels more lived in, and when you talk to people, they know who you are. It's just a different experience, right? Like not everybody knows who you are, but like
most people fucking do.
A lot of people do. There's
You're like a celeb.
Yeah, your face is on a poster.
Yeah.
So that experience is different, right? Like just it feels more lived in. There's more stuff, more Hylians at least.
It's the if Breath of the Wild. I mean, this is what we talked about this beforehand, and it totally turned out to be true. It's like Breath of the Wild is like really about you being isolated out in the wild. And yeah, there are towns here and there, but the lion's share of it is that this game has people everywhere. They're all talking to you and they all help you and they all like want to be a part of your life. And it's like, it really puts the kingdom in Tears of the Kingdom as a huge focus of this game, which I really, really enjoy. It's like, somehow they made Breath of the Wild seem like a tech demo. You know what I mean? Like with this game, like it's just like the concept of that game fully realized. I feel like
this is where I'm interested. Allison, as somebody who's played both recently, I feel like it's been a while since I played Breath of the Wild, but I feel like just moving around in this game feels better. Is the basic movement the exact same, or does it feel any different to you?
It feels pretty similar, but I haven't gotten too far into vehicles yet. Mm-hmm. Mostly because I haven't found the thing where you can control where it goes. So I just haven't been like building very many of them to get around. Because I'm sure like in terms of like traversal, that'll change a whole lot. But what I found myself doing, one thing that I would kind of say that I regret about playing Breath of the Wild so close to this is that I feel like I'm approaching a lot of the problems in the mindset of the last game. So like I'll come up to a cliff face and I'll go, oh man, I wish I had Rivali's Gale and I could get up here a lot faster, instead of like looking around for a place to use Ascend.
Right.
And so
or
I'm
your
kind of
spring.
having
attach a spring
or
to
any
a
other
fucking
variety
shield
of things.
and shield surf up. Yeah.
Build a giant ramp.
So I'm kind of having to like rewire my brain a little bit to the concepts of this game and being like, no, put the other ones away. Like you have to find a different way to cross this waterfall. Like,
yeah.
Do you guys feel like the stamina meter refills slower?
To
me, it feels slower. It's probably just because I'm trying to get away from something that's trying to kill me.
And it's and you don't have more
like,
than one.
Please go faster.
Yeah. I do know I put all my shrine grinding into stamina really soon. I don't have a full 2 circles yet, but I've got almost 2 full circles. And then I started putting stuff into hearts, which I wouldn't maybe necessarily recommend. I mean,
why? I was going to say, why'd you do that? Because I'm kind of leaning the other way.
Well, I mean, I get that. I mean, especially there's a lot of enemies when you only have like 4 or 5 hearts that can one-shot you, right? And so like that's scary. But for my money, it's like if I can get the fuck out of there, then I don't need the hearts. You know, so it's like, I'm just like, and for me, it's like so much of the game is the traversal. So it's like having a pretty nice length of run speed and then also having long paraglider times, like especially when so much of the game literally just shoots your ass up into the sky at really high speeds and then you want to go, it's like, obviously there are those metal triangles that we talked about many times.
The birds or the wings. The wings is what they're called.
What are they called? Something like that. Either way, like, obviously you have those that can help mitigate some of that as well, but
they disappear after a while.
Yeah, they're like one of the only Zonai devices. I guess that rockets obviously go pretty fast.
And the balloons do too.
Oh, they do as well.
They'll get to like a certain point or time, and then they'll disappear on you too.
I think I give it 1 week until we figure out a way to cheese the fuck out of that. It's no longer be a problem. But yeah, I put a lot of into that early on, and now I'm at the point where I'm at a better balance, and I'm like, okay, I can start adding hearts back in. I've finished my first temple now as well.
Ooh, there are temples and dungeons in this game, right? Like I haven't gotten to one yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, should we just pivot to that real quick?
Yeah,
I guess I brought it up, but I think a lot of people, in the day before this game came out, they're like, there are more traditional dungeons, which isn't really true. I think that like I've only done 1 temple so far. I went to Rito. I did that kind of, and I'll say this: it took me a long ass time to even touch the main quest. I think like I've got really bad ADHD, so it's like this game is hell for me. I mean, it's amazing, but it's like I get distracted by literally everything, right? But I finally was like, all right, before I do this podcast episode, I want to do a temple, right? So I did the Rito one, and they feel like Divine Beast to me. They just feel like a bit better balanced, but it's like it's not what people were hoping for, which is you get a map and then you get a key and then you get the boss key and you open up you know what I mean? It still feels a little bit closer to that, but either way, they feel really good. And like the story stuff that's come about because of that has been very, very enticing to me and really entertaining and kind of breaking my brain a little bit. There's kind of some what the fuck moments for me already in the story, which is really cool. But yeah, I'll say that. I mean, I think I'm now that I've done a temple, I'm like in no rush to go do the other temples. I'm like, okay, I've done that. Now I'm going to take my time, find more shrines. I want to go back to the depths because I know that there's another ability you can unlock if you do like the first few depths missions. And so I'm excited to do some of that personally.
I just finished that this afternoon on the plane, and it was very gratifying.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not done that yet either. My son and I have been debating and speculating what the ability is because we don't know. So
it was a surprise. I had no idea that was down there. I was just looking for something else to do that I thought would be a little more chill on a plane, which depths might not be.
Yeah, I was about to say, which is a creepy cave with gloom hanging.
Yeah. But I was also like, I don't want to do that alone tonight.
At night in a dark bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, I'll do it on the plane, whatever. And it led to a lot of kind of like fun surprises that I was not expecting, but glad that they were included.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. That's where I will guide my kid to because he's wants the story and wants the next thing.
Are you guys you're playing two separate files?
Yeah.
You're doing your
So
own
I've kind of played the game twice for the first 10 hours. Though actually he's been doing most of it, but I have helped him like a couple times.
Yeah. Is it because I feel like the game is like kind of breaks your brain just doing all the shit. Because like we haven't really talked about all the abilities so far, but it's like, chaining together recall with Ultra Hand, moving something up and down, and then using recall to ride it, and then using that height that you have to then ascend and then float in the air with your paraglider and use like an ability you get from one of the champions or whatever. Is like, it's a lot to handle. Like, are you finding Magnus is having an okay time keeping all that in order, or is he having like difficulty actually controlling the game?
Well, this is a great topic that I kind of wanted us to talk about anyway, which is I think that this game, I don't think there's a better way that they could have done it, but I do think playing this game, there are many times where I push the wrong button. Like,
I've not stopped pressing the wrong button. Yeah,
more so than Breath of the Wild, even though it feels like the button layout is very similar to Breath of the Wild, but I think the abilities are more crucial to every moment that I often swing my sword when I want to do an ability, or pull out the ability when I want to swing my sword, or throw an item like unexpectedly.
I constantly press right on the D-pad to try to get to Ultra Hand. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, oh, god damn it.
That was somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that up on the D-pad was your ability select. In Breath of the Wild. I don't think it was on the trigger button.
And
so
now
I'm having a hard time being like, oh,
or items.
Yeah,
it's just item. It's like a quick, which you can't even like do all stuff on. It's like, I wish I could just eat an apple by pressing up on the D-pad, but I don't think that's possible in this game. I think you still have to pause for that.
Yeah, you have to, like, you can drop items, which I think is meant to help you with fusion.
Fusing? Why can't you just fuse?
But I was, because I asked in the Discord, I was like, can we just fuse stuff, or do you have to drop it on the ground to use the ability? And so that's a little like, But I have the same thing. I'm like, if we have the quick access, why don't we get full access to but I guess that's even more buttons.
There's a lot of buttons, and maybe it would be nice if there was some remapping or some different ones, but I don't know that there's like a ton.
Dog, please.
I don't know that there's like a ton of better ways that they could have done it other than offering remapping. But anyway,
by the time if they ever patch that in, I'll be way too used to the normal controls to where
there's nothing I would want to change because it's just too much. That's part of the problem.
I do think. Let's just say quickly about the controls. I think they're unhinged, dude. I think it's insane. I mean, like literally, like I play the game like this. Like I'm holding the controller like I'm holding it like this, you know, because I run and then I jump with this and then I use this for like the camera while I'm going. If you're a podcast listener, I'm holding it in like just a bizarre claw grip right now. But I mean, but I did the same thing with Breath of the Wild. It's like having run on A and jump on X, or excuse me, B and X is insane. You know, it makes no sense. I saw somebody recently showed their like layout for what they do with the Switch system menu, and it was like, oh, that would have made so much more sense. But for some reason, they stuck with this like really bizarre, you know, like layout, right? And then, like you were saying, adding in all the effects and all the abilities and everything on top of that, and the quick menus and everything's in a different menu. It's like they're really using every part of the Pro Controller for this game and in really bizarre ways.
Push every button for sure.
Yeah.
But to answer your initial question, he's doing really well with this game. I was worried that it would be too hard for him, but I actually think, having watched him, and again, I guided him. I was like, I did not play it, but on the Great Sky Island, I was like, go to that shrine. You know what I mean? Like, then start heading this way. And occasionally I did even do some movement stuff for him, but he's got the basics of it down. He's a little afraid of combat, which again, early on in the game is tough, right? Like you get killed. But I've kind of forced him to do the shrines where they teach you the combat stuff, where he was like, I can't do this. Will you just beat the shrine? I'm like, let's take some deep breaths. You know what I mean? Like that construct is going to swing the same every time. You know what I mean? Like, and once I kind of like guided him through that, he was able to do all of that on his own. But I don't know that he would have if I wasn't there, like coaching him a little bit. But now I will say that, to your point of like doing rewind and then, or like moving things and then rewinding them, I don't do a lot of that, but I watch him play and he's doing that. He's like moving boards up a thing and then getting on them and rewind. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's smart. Like, cool way to climb that thing. Yeah. So he's chaining some things together that I'm not. So
I said this in the Discord, but I think one of the first like, oh my God moments in this game for me was like, there was an area on top of a rock with a bunch of spikes around it, so you can't climb up it. And so, and there were some fans around, right? And so I was like, ooh, I could do this. And I grabbed one of the fans and lifted it up with Ultra Hand and then brought it back down, then reverse time and like precariously like balanced on the fan as it like rose in the air. And then I was like, oh, you're supposed to just strike the fan and use your paraglider to get up. You know, I was like, okay, that's probably what I was supposed to do, but this fucking worked. And it doesn't matter as long as I get the bag, you know?
Yeah. To that, there's a shrine where you had to move a ball all the way through the shrine and then drop it back where you started. I don't know if y'all have done that one.
Yeah.
But I built this ridiculous contraption to get the ball up to this one point where I could carry it across. And then I watched my son just build a long bridge. And I was like, oh, that would have been smarter.
Yeah.
People are making...
go ahead.
I feel like I'm over engineering a lot of things, and not in like an intelligent way. Like, I would love to watch, I'm sure there's going to be like YouTube series of engineers playing this game.
Yes.
Because I feel like they would, be very efficient about their simple machines. And I'm like, no, let's just keep adding boards until it works.
Yeah. People are stringing together like 45 logs to make like impossibly long bridges. And it's like, by the time they cross it, like the trees have respawned and stuff like that. And it's like, holy shit, man. It's amazing. But let's just talk about Ultra Hand for a second.
Yeah, we haven't really dug into Ultra Hand, which is the game.
It's just incredible. Like, it's like, I'm amazed. I'm like so blown away by the fact that, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of a performance hit when you use Ultra Hand. Like, kind of definitely gets sub 30 frames per second. I'm hearing around 20 is where it hits sometimes when you use Ultra Hand, which is a bit disappointing. But I'm amazed that it doesn't just crash the fucking game. Like, I have not seen one bug or one crash. Yeah, it's like somehow the game is able to handle all these assets with zero load times. You know what I mean? And I don't know about you guys, but at first Ultra Hand was so hard for me to get my head around just turning things. I would like try to get them upright, and it's like kind of at an angle, and then I turn it, and it's still at an angle. But now it feels like second nature to me. I've gotten really, really good with building, and it feels good. I don't know what y'all's experience is with that.
I was gonna say the one other criticism of this might be that, right? The like using Ultra Hand with it being so important, the way it's done feels a little weird with rotation, and then with like size of objects and not falling off of things and trying to move things can be a little frustrating. But I think with time you get better at it, but it's just not super intuitive, especially at first.
Yeah, I would say I'm like medium to okay at building things. But one thing that I have found surprisingly gratifying is that things get heavier as you build them. If you're building with heavy materials and you try and pick it up again with Ultra Hand, it almost feels like he doesn't want to pick it up. It's like, oh, please. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I have to build something else.
Yeah.
To help do the things. Like rotation never seems to slow down, but sometimes the lifting of heavy objects seems to, and it doesn't have a very long reach either. You have to get pretty close to the stuff to.
But what you can do, and something that I found in that last temple I did, there was a little area. I'm not gonna do any like big spoilers for this area, but there's a spot where there's a chest really far away, and you can't go to it, right? But what you can do is attach two long ass fucking things together and then put them over there, and then you can fuse it, or you can attach it to it far away, right? So it's like, even if you can't reach something with Ultra Hand, if you have a long enough like wand or whatever it is that you build out of all these different materials, you can reach that thing and then kind of like really gently pull it back like as you need to, and that's been really gratifying. I think the whole like weird goop that kind of connects everything together it just works, it's like,
it's crazy.
and it's like the little minuscule like angle changes or something make a huge difference in how you make something. And I find that, I don't know, it's just the amount of testing that went into this game must have been insane.
Yeah. I mean, Ultra Hand is really the star of the show, but then you talk about Fuse and just like all the weird interactions that can happen when you put things on your shield and when you put things on your weapon, and just running around with a flame emitter on both my shield and my sword. It was fun for a while, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just crazy what you can do with all this stuff.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about Zonai devices? I mean, when you talk about the flame emitters and stuff like that, like I remember before this game came out, we're like, ooh, maybe that thing is like something that you get like later in the game and it's an unlockable item and blah, blah, blah. No, you just have a million of them at all times and you can whip them out literally whenever you want. Like that kind of has blown my mind. Like how the Zonai devices are like, they almost feel like we built these puzzles for you to figure out. And if you get stuck and you don't know how to do them, you can always just Zonai device your way out of any problem that you're in. You know what I mean? It's kind of like always a scapegoat. It's like, if you're breaking your brain trying to figure this thing out, just make a weird contraption out of the shit that you have on hand, and you can cheese almost any problem, right?
Yeah.
What's been y'all's experience with that?
I still feel like I'm coming across new ones. Like, I feel like I have like 5 or 6 that I like have, but I haven't revisited one of the little like gumball dispensers to get more of them in a while. Yeah.
Nintendo loves their capsule machines. Yeah.
So I feel like there's still a lot more that, I only recently did the rocket shield thing. And that was one of the most gratifying things I've ever done. I was like, this is amazing.
I couldn't figure that out for so long. I was like, I saw in a trailer Link holding onto a rocket and flying into the air, and I couldn't grab it, and I lost so many rockets just like trying to grab them. And then I was like, you just put it on your shield and fly into the sky. Like, yeah, I feel like I've only scratched the surface of putting shit on my shield, but I feel like there's so much you could do with that, especially with shield surfing, right?
Yeah, the minecart.
Yeah, I've definitely got a skateboard shield. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Allison that I have only, the dispenser only gives out initially at least fans, pots, and flame emitters, and then I've come across in the wild the rockets, and then I've come across springs, but not actually been able to get springs. So I don't know when I'll get more stuff or.
So each gotcha machine Like,
is there more than one gacha machine? That's also another question. I have only seen the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all over the place and they get marked on your map. And then each machine has different items that it gives you.
Perfect.
Right? Like
Good
from
to
a
know.
pool, right? And then also it's really nice when you're on the map and you put your cursor over that machine, it'll tell you which devices spawn out of each one.
Okay.
Right? So it's like and then there's usually almost always a shrine right next to those things too, so you can fast travel to them. Right?
You don't know how excited I am to tell my son some of this, because these are questions he keeps asking me. He's like, "You think there's another capsule machine?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah. So that's pretty special. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of blown away by the sheer amount of shit that it gets, because it's like on top of all these new abilities, all these devices that you have on hand at all times. It wrinkles your brain, man. Just the amount of shit you can do.
I think it's great, but I can see some people, because it's kind of like, and I've read this in the interviews where they're like, we're giving people the cheat codes and allowing them to play the game. I can see some people not liking this game as much as Breath of the Wild because of that, right? Because it does feel too easy to solve some puzzles, or because it's kind of ridiculous to run around with this giant thing attached to your shield, right? Breath of the Wild already had that a little bit, but this took it to that next level. I am loving it, and I think that overall it's better for the absurdity, and because I think it's still challenging. I mean, at least there are some shrines where I'm still kind of scratching my head, like, I'm not sure what the best solution here is. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a couple that I've just like unlocked the travel point, gone in and been like, I gotta rest my brain before I do this.
Yeah.
But then I find myself like, I'll step away from the game and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, that's how I should do that. And then there's something really gratifying in that kind of also playing a game right when it comes out, right? And I'm trying really hard to do my first playthrough without guides or looking up how to do things or how to beat things. So that I have that moment of gratification. Obviously I'm talking to people about it. But to me that feels different than just being like, oh, what's the answer to this shrine? Because I'm sure it's already out there.
Yeah. And to kind of like what David said earlier, sometimes you can just string a couple poles together and solve everything, but then sometimes you can't. And that, most of the time you can, but
I feel like pretty much any time you could strap a rocket to a fucking wing, you know what I mean? And just figure it out that way. At the very least you've got that, right? Which is pretty amazing. I'm finding I'm loving going to like the subreddit and looking at clips of people doing wacky shit, because it's like, I was this game, I feel like it almost was to the game's detriment that they kept so much in secret, because I feel like people are like really don't want to be spoiled about the game, and it's causing people to not look up how other people are playing, which is so much of the fun of this early time right now, is like seeing the wacky ways people do things, because I see how they do things, and instead of being like, oh, that's spoiled for me, now I can do it, I'm like, cool, I can do it that way, I'm gonna figure out a different way. You know what I mean? And like, and it kind of like gives me more impetus to like be creative on my own side, right? Which is really just, I've never seen any other game do that before,
My brother has been sending me like several TikToks a day of like impressive things that people have built. Today he sent me, somebody built like a Saturn V rocket. Like a multi-stage rocket.
I saw that.
How did they do this?
There's like stage separation and shit, like as it goes up. It's insane.
And now I'm dying to know how they did it. I'm like, oh man, what do I have to do to make that?
Have you gotten the like timed Zonai bombs yet?
No.
That might be part of it as well.
Yet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's probably it.
That is a nice thing, because bombs were an ability in Breath of the Wild, right? So obviously it's a consumable now. So it's like, I get frustrated with the lack of bomb flowers, but that having been said, there are also Zonai bombs. So that kind of mitigates it a little bit, right? And like you were saying before, Allison, like not having Rivali's Gale, like I kind of miss Rivali's Gale, but there's always a different way to do it. You just kind of have to retrain your brain a little.
Just drop a fan.
Yeah. I do wish that there is I think out of all the abilities from the first Breath of the Wild, the one I miss the most is stasis. I think the whole idea of freezing something in place and smacking the shit out of it until it has a bunch of momentum and then it flies off was a pretty cool mechanic, and I think that would have fit pretty well into this repertoire. of like move sets. I think they could have totally kept that one and gotten rid of some of the others. There's a couple others too. Like, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but like, you get more abilities like you did with like Rivali's Gale and stuff like that throughout this game, but they're all slightly different, right? It's like they purposefully wanted them to not be the same, so you would figure out new ways to do things, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that we like better about this and that are improved? I don't know if there's anything else for y'all, but the one thing that sticks out to me, I mean, we've talked about several, but is the quest log feels better, and just honestly, just the text that appears, and it's like, you got a new quest. Things are a little clearer in terms of like side quests, main quests. The story quests feel a little clearer on where I'm supposed to go and what I'm supposed to do than they were in Breath of the Wild, where I think maybe intentionally it was kind of vague, but it was also kind of too vague. I don't know. Is there anything else or any other comments on the quest stuff?
I like the way that they've divided the quest, but I need to dive into a little bit more of exactly what it means, because you have like main story quest, and then it's like side adventures and then side quests. And I'm like, does that mean the side adventures are more like a multi-step, which might be what it is, and then side quests are just do this one thing and then you're done? But I noticed that today. I was like, oh, there's like two different sections of side categories of side quests, because I was trying to be like, how much have I actually done? Or started, unlocked, like how many of these things. But yeah, that's an interesting
demarcation,
delineation, of what they are.
And especially with all the different areas, like there are quest lines that are just for the depths. There are quest lines that are just, it's like even the main quest stuff. It's like this begets this, then that begets that, and then we're at our temple or whatever, or like, you know what I mean? It's like everything kind of leads you to something else, but the organization of it within the menu system definitely is better, right?
And even within the main quest stuff, it's like, again, not to be like, oh, but this and this and this, but Breath of the Wild was basically, you got two main quests, right? It was destroy Ganon, free the divine beasts. And those were like the only two main quests. They kind of got sub-quested when you got to each area. But this one so far, I've been like, oh, this is part of the main quest line, and there's like 5 or 6 of them already. That you've been doing. The first map tower was probably my favorite sub animation in any video game ever.
Yeah, it's so fun to do the towers,
dude. It's amazing, and
you can redo them. Actually, you can see the animation again.
Yeah, you can. But I was kind of bummed because I really liked the towers in Breath of the Wild. I liked having to figure out how to climb them. I liked figuring out how to get to them, and there's still a degree of that in this game, right? But so I was a little like, oh man, that's kind of unfortunate. But then you see the animation of you flying over the fucking sky and scanning everything with the USB-C attached to the bottom of your Switch.
They are not past corded technology there.
Yeah, like if the slate in Breath of the Wild was a Wii U gamepad, this is a fucking Switch, like definitely, right?
And it like grabs you and holds you down, and then it very gingerly is like, boop. Here's the plug.
Yeah, exactly. Like that stuff kind of blew my mind. I really, really enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bummer, like you said, that the towers, you walk in the bottom of them.
Yeah.
It is still hard to get to some of them, and there is some of that, like you said, but it does I kind of wish that button was at the top.
Yeah. I think overall, like, I mean, I really don't have too many complaints about this game. And I think a lot of the complaints that I have like are mitigated by the fact that I already played Breath of the Wild and this had them in them. So it's not even like a complaint. It's just stuff I liked more in Breath of the Wild than in this game. Like, I think like aesthetically, I think Breath of the Wild had a lot more interest. Like, I think like Sheikah tech is more aesthetically interesting than Zonai tech. You know what I mean? Like, I loved all the weird, like, they all look like spaghetti, like all the stones and stuff in the first game. Like, I think like just like the solid slab stuff is a little more drab. Like, I think some of the music of the Sheikah themed stuff was more interesting. But that said, like, I think it's awesome that they were like, you already played a full game with Sheikah aesthetics. Now we're giving you a whole new culture to kind of explore, right? So it's not even really a complaint. It's just something that I kind of preferred in the first game. But with so much that's improved in this game, I really don't give a shit.
We've been talking for a long time about this, so we should probably wrap this up and move in to our next segment. But I mean, I definitely want to give everybody space to mention anything that they haven't had a chance to that they're loving, or any other thoughts on the game.
I don't know. I started thinking about it and I was like, well, I just got to get back into it and see
Yeah.
what I can see.
Yeah.
You know, because it is very rewarding. For me, more so the surface caves than the depths.
Mhm.
All of them tend to be like short and sweet. But finding them is really, really nice. You get the little like musical chime and it's a discovery, you know, like, oh my God, I found something new.
Yeah.
But those to me have been kind of my favorite part about the favorite addition to this game.
Yeah, they're constantly drip feeding you dopamine in this game. You know, it's just like every little thing just makes you feel really good and really smart. Or it's like you feel I go back and forth between feeling like a genius and feeling like an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's
When
an amazing balance. Yeah.
When your board creation like does not work and falls flat, and
falls
you're
over, you're like,
"Oh."
Yeah. Something I'm a little disappointed in that I think is kind of a big oversight is if you make a device out of like, you spend a long time like building, like I spent a long time like building a fucking car and I was really proud of it and it had the steering mechanism and everything and I was like, hell yeah, I have a car. And then I like came upon a bunch of enemies and I was like, oh shit, I want to save because I want to save this car. And then I got killed by the enemies and then my car was just gone. You know, you have to like build that again. You know what I mean? So that's kind of unfortunate. I think that's a bit of an oversight, unfortunately. But again, these are small nitpicks on a system that is, you know, really robust and it doesn't really bother me. What else did I want to mention? Oh, I love that weirdo who holds up the fucking signs and you got to like build shit to like put under it. And I keep it's my personal goal to do that differently every time. Like, I don't want to just like the first time I did it, I just put like a bunch of planks on top of each other until it was tall enough to hold it up. Right. And then it's like, then I did one where I like moved a snowball over and it like held it up. Then I did one where I just parked my fucking horse in front of it and the horse stopped it from going down. You know what I mean? So there's like all these different creative ways you can help that weirdo. So I've been enjoying that. What do you guys think about Koroks and the Korok companion quests in this?
Yeah.
I think the Korok companion quests are very cute. I think some of the other ones feel a little too samey. And they have varied the puzzles a little bit. You know, there's no magnesis puzzles, but there are other ones using Ultra Hand that feel almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a little kind of like, okay. At least they're a little more varied than Breath of the Wild. And I still like come across them. It took me forever to find Hetsu.
Yeah.
It took me
I just
forever.
found him randomly walking around. Like, I don't even know where I was when I found him. Yeah,
and then I had acquired another like 40 seeds before I saw him again. And I was like, and I was dying for a bigger inventory. So that was a little frustrating, but
yeah. I'm glad it's back though. I think like that's another one of those things where it's like, I see the thing I need to go to and I'm going over there. Oh fuck. There's a Korok that needs his friend. And it's like, all right, I guess I'll go do this now, you know? And it's like, because if I don't do it, I'll just forget. You know what I mean? And you can mark your map with little leaves or whatever, like showing where a Korok is if you really want to like leave it and go back. But I'm the kind of guy where I'm like, I'm just going to forget this and I don't want to backtrack as much. Right. So I always go out of my way to like do whatever I find on my way. It just makes my playthrough like really, really long. But I think like marking stuff with your scope is even more clutch this go round now that there's way more shit to do. And I just find like ticking off the little colors as I visit these places to be really satisfying as well. And
I think in terms of stamps, I think they've actually let you put more stamps on your map. I think Breath of the Wild was 100 and this is 300, which is great.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe they're the same. Maybe I'm misremembering.
It makes sense now that there's literally 3 layers to the map. You know, like so that's definitely helpful.
I don't know if you guys have noticed too, but when you're setting beacons and flipping through your map pages, you can tell which layer you set that beacon on.
Right.
You'll see them on all of them, but like, I noticed that today. I was like, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff like that. I think maybe last thing to talk about, we've been kind of purposefully avoiding it because we don't want to give any spoilers away, but just the way the story is presented is much more satisfying than Breath of the Wild, right? There's still basically the idea of memories, you know? There are like areas where you get those memories as they go. But in addition to that, the story is being revealed in other ways as well. And I think it's a really good blend of this happened in the past, and also this is happening now, and this is maybe concurrently happening, and what's happening. And there's a whole mystery that's unfolding. And that whole mystery element was like not even really in Breath of the Wild at all, right? So figuring out what's actually happening with Zelda is a very, very satisfying story loop. And I'm really enjoying that. And I can't wait to see where it goes, because I really have no... I mean, I had theories before the game came out, and I think some of those theories ended up being true. But there's like other things happening at play where I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, the way that it plays with the timeline is really, really, really interesting. And I can't wait to uncover more of those mysteries as I'm going. And I'm really glad that hasn't been spoiled for me so far.
Yeah.
Because discovering that has been a true joy in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I've come up on places and been like, what is happening? Or you talk to NPCs and they're like, oh, there's this thing, you know, and you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So at times right now I'm still like jury's out a little bit on the story. Like I like the presentation of it. But right now I'm a little like, there's going to be a payoff. Like I'm pretty sure there's going to be a payoff, but right now my threads are a little too disconnected to see what the end game is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we could keep talking about this game forever, and I can't wait to do like a check-in on this game. I think that'll be a really fun episode. We'll have to do that in whatever amount of time we want to give it. But I think that does it for today for our initial impressions episode. So we're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the other games that we've been playing recently. Honestly, I don't think I've played anything new since this game came out. I mean, I was playing some Splatoon between our last episode and this game's release, but I don't think I've played much else. So I have nothing to say. I mean, I played some Splatoon. I think that's it.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked so much about that game, so we'll see if this new game breaks my addiction to Splatoon.
Yeah, I've been playing a little bit more games, but it has been obviously mostly Tears of the Kingdom. I also had like a crazy fucking week, so it's been like there's been a lot going on and a lot of like things to do.
Yeah.
Right. But that said, I mean, obviously I've been playing some more Picross. I talked about it a little bit earlier today, but or earlier in this episode. What is time? But I like yeah, it doesn't matter. But I've been playing a lot of multiplayer Picross with Bloom. I've still been doing that, and it was fun when my dad was over. It was like, you know, like my dad came into town like for this appointment today to like kind of help me. It's always nice to have someone there when you need it.
Yeah.
But then it was like, I get stressed out when I'm like, oh, my parents are in town. I need to like show them something fun to do, like around Austin and like be a tour guide or whatever. And instead, we just went home and me and Bloom just showed my dad how to play Picross. And that was so much fucking fun. Like, because he was like, I've heard you talk about it a lot on the podcast. What is this game actually? And then we like showed him and he was like, this is amazing. And I was like, yeah, it is. And it was like, it's just really nice to introduce that game to people. And I'm like, the more I play, the more I'm like prepping how I'm going to like do a Picross like masterclass.
You are a Picross evangelist for sure.
I literally am. If you don't play this game, you're dead to me. But then other than that, I've just been playing a little bit here and there. A lot more Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. That game is fucking fun, man. It's really, really cool. The music is incredible, and that's just got a really satisfying game loop. But yeah, I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find me playing anything other than Tears of the Kingdom at this moment, unless I'm literally like just playing something in the background. You know, if I'm playing something while I'm listening to something else, that's the case. But what I am really excited about this week is Firmament. Like, I think that's going to be the game that gets me to put down Tears of the Kingdom. It was recently verified to run on Steam Deck. I'm a huge fan of Cyan as a company, and so I'm really looking forward to playing that. And yeah, so I'm probably just going to play a shit ton of Tears of the Kingdom beforehand, so I feel like I can take a break and play this other game, and can't wait for that. But what about you, Allie? You've been playing anything other than Tears of the Kingdom?
Not really. Same thing. You know, like every now and then, if I need a brain break from Tears of the Kingdom, I'll pick up Picross, which isn't really a brain break, but it's a different type of problem solving, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was telling Patrick over the break that you know, Thursday night, I had like just booted up the game, and my fiance came out and like kissed me on the forehead and said, "See you in 2 weeks."
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that we've gotten into it, it might be more like 3. So
Yeah, I got one of those too. It was like, so am I not gonna see you for a few days, or what's going on here? I think it's been a pretty good balance. I definitely like, you know, we've done some other things, and just long enough to where I like miss the game again and go back to it. But anyway, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does it then for our episode on Tears of the Kingdom. Thank you so much, Allison, for coming in and talking to us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. This was awesome. So much fun.
Hell yeah.
Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, I am PDYX.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Allison? Where can people find you online?
Mostly on the Switch Headz Discord. You can also pick me up on Instagram at AllieAce. Same as my Discord handle. And it's mostly, although right now it'll probably be like Tears of the Kingdom silly videos and mostly cooking pictures, because that's what I do in my free time now.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's nice when a game can mirror your real life habits. A lot of cooking in this game. But that's great. If you'd like to find our show on social media, folks, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook. We got a website, switchheadz.com. And then, like Ali just mentioned, we've got the Discord. Make sure you join us over there at the Discord. Zelda channel is popping the fuck off right now. We're all very respectful of spoiler tags, which is a really great environment for those who wish not to be spoilt. And then, so join us over there. We're having a great time on the Discord. We'll have a link to that in the description. We've also got our Facebook group, which also is a great community. We've got to have a link in the description of this episode to that as well. So make sure you check that out. That's going to do it for this episode. What a fun episode. I've been looking forward to this pretty much all week, talking about this game. So I'm really happy to have done it with you guys. We're going to be back next week with another great episode. So make sure you guys don't change that dial on your podcast app. But in the meantime, you guys know the drill out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Play more Tears of the Kingdom, man. There's no reason not to. It's the best game of all time, probably. But other than that, everybody, we love you guys very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.